Hello, thanks for joining me. Nice to see you. Figure of speech, I know I can't see you, but you can see me. We're in a spring wood here, or early spring in the wood, as you might be able to hear from the birds. And I thought I'd go through one of my strange stories. I know people like my stories. I'm not sure that I'm happy with the fact that I have these stories, but anyway, this one involves some rather strange goings on. So this video could be really long or in two parts. So I'm warning you now. Ooh. Oh, he's flown. Oh, there was a buzzard, I think. But he's hidden behind the trees so we can't see him. So, well, let's begin. Now a lot of this I've worked out because of hindsight, which is a great way to do divination readings. Well, what happened was, over the years, I'd noticed some, this is back in the days when there were landlines, I had noticed that when I was on calls to certain friends, certain people, not everybody, certain ones, but at some point during the phone call there would be a bit of a click on the line, which I always thought was a little bit odd. And this happened a lot with, as I say, those certain people. This is in, let's see, three different places where I lived. Might even be four, actually, but a number, yeah. And then I moved to somewhere else, and during that time I noticed on the bill, which were never in my name, they were in the name of my partner, on the bill was, there's one particular time, there was a three-way call. Which is quite curious, and it wasn't a three-way call with someone that I was having a phone call with. One of the three ways was my son, and the other one was me, and the other one was a client of mine. Anyway, I thought this was very strange, as no doubt anyone would, and I racked my brains as to how that could be possible. And I figured that, well, I didn't have that access, I didn't have that, what do you call it, capability with that landline. Anyway, I moved to somewhere else, and that's where things took an even stranger turn. And then I moved to quite a remote valley. It was very remote. And communications were quite difficult down there. Now by this time I had a mobile phone. And then one particular person that I used to be in contact with, we would have, our text messages would be jumbled up when they got to each other, and they wouldn't make sense, or we'd get messages that had been sent, you know, many years before, so they were out of context. So that was strange, and it wasn't always when I was down in this valley. I would be at work or in other places, and it would still happen, and they had the same. So that, you know, as you could probably guess, it led to a whole lot of confusion and misunderstandings that could have been avoided. Now, while I was in this while I was living in this place, a number of things happened, not at once, but around the same time. One was that on our itemised bill, we had a three-way call. Now I can't remember one of the people in the three-way call, but it wasn't anyone who was, you know, it was a friend. But the other one was our neighbour in the village. And our neighbour in the village was in the CID. So we thought it was strange. And the bloke I was sharing the house with, one day he came out to me. He was in the front room and I was in the kitchen. He came out, he said, "Were you just having a shave?" I said, "No." He said, "Oh." So I picked up the phone and I could hear water splashing. So he thought, well, that's strange. You would think that, wouldn't you? Now, another thing that happened around this time was that my friend who I was sharing the house with, he decided to go on the internet because he found a deal for a laptop and connection to, at the time, would have been broadband. So he applied, coming up here to have a look at this. So he applied and they said, yeah, fine. Then they got in touch with him and they said, oh, there's going to be a bit of a problem there. And he said, well, why? And they said, well, because you have a line splitter. And he thought, well, that's strange, I've never heard of one of them. I haven't, have you? So they said, well, we're going to have to enter discussions with British Telecom, with whom the line was rented out. So they got back to us, or to him, and said, well, I'm afraid we can't do it. You need to get in touch with British Telecom and get them to come and remove the line splitter. So we thought, well, this is strange. This is really strange. Why on earth have we got a line splitter? The phones, all these phones, apart from my mobile, were in other people's names. So he duly got in touch with British Telecom and chatted to them, and then he said, well, so what is a line splitter? To which they replied with an evasive sentence and comment and moved the subject on somewhere else. Anyway, what happened was we managed to get an engineer out who came out. Oh yeah, we had, the other thing I should mention is that our line was often very noisy. So he came out and he checked our line, then he went up the road to climbed up a few telegraph poles, and he said, oh, I found a loose wire on one of the poles, and we'd often heard and seen the cows rubbing themselves on it, and it was very loud. So he said, well, do you want to check your phone again? So we checked the phone again, and it was still noisy. So obviously he said, well, maybe it's your phone. So I took it to our neighbour, who, well, there was a little bit of suspicion from us about her and her position because of her brother, her husband's brother, who eventually, not long after, was actually found dead on Snowdon. So if you're British, you might remember that. I'm having to go that way. That's so hot there. But I'm trying to keep this path open. Anyway, she was very cagey about helping me out and doing it, which I thought was very odd. Anyway, eventually we managed to get it done, but still without ever getting to the bottom of what it was all about. You see the white through the gap there. Anyway, I eventually left there and moved to another place, and then from there I moved to the place where I am now. And some more weirdness happened. So one day in September, quite close to my mother's birthday, my mother's 80th birthday, we had torrential rain, and my house, because of the design of my house, I had rain coming in through the roof. And it was so bad, and then the electric would go off, so I couldn't use a pump. So I eventually called the fire brigade. A nice old elder here, complete with a hole. So we called the fire brigade, and eventually they did come out. And the strange thing was that about a week or so earlier, my father would have been 80 had he still been alive. So I thought that was very strange that I had to call the fire brigade out because of the flood. Anyway, when they went off, before they went off, they said, your fire alarms are probably going to go off because of the water. Once the water gets in there, it will set them off. And then about half an hour later, it did. So I live in a small house, and 3 fire alarms going off all within a few meters of each other in a very tiny house is an indescribable cacophony. If I'd been able to reach with a hammer, they would have all been smashed. But even taking the battery out wouldn't work. Well, it would if I knew how to, if I'd have known how to take it out. Anyway, so what I did is I went up the road to my landlord's. Who didn't answer. But on my way back, now this was about midnight, and on my way back, when I got back to my house, which is halfway up a hill, I noticed that my neighbour who doesn't really speak to me or give me eye contact, and is in many ways very odd, almost in the vein of anyone who's in the CID or the police or any kind of secret service is. And if you've come across them, you know what that means. Even though his wife speaks to me and chats to me. So I saw him just after midnight at the top of my road in torrential rain. Now I can hear my alarms going off, and he didn't even come down to say, "Are you okay? Can I help?" Right? Now that's weird in itself, isn't it? Not to mention that he's in torrential rain at midnight, wandering around the street. Anyway, so I came in and I tried to stop the noise of these alarms, and I phoned up emergency electric companies, and nothing. I couldn't get any help, so eventually they stopped, and then they'd go off, every so often. So I had to put up with that all night. Then, obviously I got it sorted in the morning properly, and even now my roof has only just been fixed so it doesn't flood. That took a long time, many years of me having to put up with floods every time it rained before something was done about it. And if you can imagine, if you work in the rain outside and you're wiped out and you have torrential rain and you don't know when you get home that your bathroom and kitchen are going to be flooded. These are downstairs and that's where the strange roof is. Anyway, so it's now fixed, so I have to keep an eye on it, but I don't worry that much because it doesn't seem to happen now. Oh, these are beautiful, aren't they? Anyway, this I had a phone that isn't a smartphone. Okay, none of my phones are smartphones at this point, and so I switched this other phone on because I didn't use it. I didn't take it to work. I used it in the evening, so I switched it on, and then I went about my business. And then when I came to look at it, I noticed that there was a recording on there that was over an hour long. I thought, well, that's odd, because you can't switch it on and accidentally turn on the recorder. It wasn't possible, because I tried. So that's why everything I say, I've already investigated a cause, a possible cause, which is why I'm doing this video. So I couldn't find any way that it would have happened, so I listened to it, and basically it's me wandering around my house, phoning up emergency electricians and wandering around my house swearing and clearing up the water from the flooding. So I thought, well, that's a bit weird, so I checked the time, and the time of the recording started just after midnight, literally when I just walked in the door. So I thought, oh yeah, right. Now, in case you don't know, if you have a microphone, it can be switched on remotely. Even a microphone in a landline can be switched on remotely. These things are possible. I found out through word of mouth from someone who worked in those kind of organisations that did that kind of thing. Right, let's have a plain break. And then it took me a couple of days before I remembered that it wasn't the first time that this had happened, and that one night I turned on the same phone and I changed my clothes and put some food on, and when I came to my phone there was a 19-minute voice recording that I didn't do. And I thought, well, that's weird. That's really weird. And I listened to it, and it was basically me wandering around my house. So that's where I first thought, oh, can I accidentally switch the phone on and record myself? Well, no, I couldn't. So that stayed as a mystery. Well, still is a bit of a mystery, even now. Just getting another more shots of this. Look at it. Beautiful. So fast forward a few years, maybe even a year, not that far even, and I picked up my daughter from school. I thought, oh, I'll drive her back a roundabout way and show her some places. And we drove past this airfield, and I was talking about a few things, and you know, some of which is involved in here, in this video. And we got back to my house, and she was sat on the stairs taking her shoes off. And I walked into the front room, and I looked at this same phone that isn't a smartphone. I looked at this same phone, and it was all lit up. And as it was the subject of some of the things we'd been talking about, I beckoned her in. I said, so she came in, and I pointed to the phone, and she could see it was all lit up. Then, what I did while she watched me is I opened it up and showed her that it didn't have A, a battery, and B, a SIM card. And then I pointed to where the battery was lying at the side of it and the SIM card next to it. So there is a witness to this thing happening. So that got me thinking, well, hang on, so even without a battery and a SIM card, a phone can be turned on even though it's got no power? That's interesting, isn't it? And before some of you comment and say, oh, there is a thing that can be put on your phone that will do that. Yeah, I know that now. Is that what it was? Now, at the time of filming, that's the last phone issues, the last of the phone issues that I can think of. And that's before. That's not including the issues of being followed. And there is one more phone thing from, let's say, yeah, just another issue, and that is that this one particular night we used to get phone calls around 8:30 in the evening where you'd pick up the phone and you say, this is landline phones, yeah, landline phones. And we'd get a call at 8:30 in the evening, and you'd pick it up, say hello, and there would be silence on the other end of the phone. And then one night I was expecting a call at 8:30 from my friend Mark. So when the phone rang and I picked it up, and I said, hello Mark, and there was an instant click on the other end when the person on the other end put the phone down. And then a couple of minutes later my friend Mark called, and I thought, that's interesting. Did I accidentally find the name of the person who was making these strange calls. I'll probably never know, but my feeling is, yes, indeed I did. That was exactly what happened. It's interesting, if you act on your intuition, although I wasn't, you know, you can accidentally discover the truth. So I hope you enjoyed that. There's more to come, I think. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment. Check out the links below. Donate if you want to, if you can. If not, join me next time. If not, okay, it's fine. But if you want to, I'll see you next time. Ta-ra.